The midday sun cast a golden shimmer over Ouagadougou's crowded marketplace. Wooden stalls creaked under the weight of fresh produce, vibrant fabrics waved in the dusty breeze, and the air pulsed with the calls of vendors, the clatter of wheels, and the sharp tang of roasted peppers. Amid the noise and motion walked a man in a plain white shirt and worn brown trousers. His cap was pulled low, shadowing his eyes, and nothing in his stride betrayed the burden he carried. He looked like any other man, and that was exactly what he wanted. President Ibrahim Traoré had grown restless. Every morning, reports from his advisors painted the same picture: peace, prosperity, unity. But his heart whispered a different story, one he could no longer ignore. So he had shed the armor of his title, left behind his ceremonial guards, and stepped into the streets like a ghost among his people. Earlier that day, his wife had gripped his arm tightly. "You're a good man, Ibrahim, but good men have enemies. Be careful." "I just need to know," he had said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "With my own eyes, my own ears. I need to see the truth." Now threading his way between banana carts and spice sacks, flanked discreetly by two trusted guards in civilian clothes, Ibrahim listened, not to politicians, but to the people. And then he heard it. A scratchy voice barked from a battered radio strapped to a stick. "Breaking news! Danger in the palace! Traitors plan to kill President Traoré tonight." The crowd barely paused. A few people laughed. Some tossed coins into a plastic cup in front of the source. A ragged boy standing atop a metal crate, dressed in torn shorts and a grimy shirt. His hair was wild, his voice untrained but certain. "Enemies inside the government," the boy cried. "They'll strike tonight during a private meeting." "They've already infiltrated the guards." Most dismissed him as a child playing at revolution, but Ibrahim's blood turned to ice. He pushed forward, careful to mask his urgency. "Hey," he said quietly, approaching the boy. "Where did you hear that?" The boy narrowed his eyes. "Who wants to know?" "I like news," Ibrahim replied, forcing a casual smile. "Never heard anything like that." "Is it a story?" "It's real, Uncle," the boy replied. "I heard them last night on my shortwave radio. They spoke in code, but I understood enough. They said, 'Tonight is the night.' They said the president's name." Ibrahim's fingers curled slightly. "You recorded it?" The boy jumped down, reaching into a small bag. He pulled out an ancient recorder, the kind with clunky buttons and a dusty screen. "Want to hear?" Ibrahim nodded. Static buzzed, then voices crackled through, faint but distinct. "He must be gone before morning. Guards will be ours." His chest tightened. One voice was unmistakable, one of his own ministers. "Do you know who they are?" he asked. "No, but I traced the signal. I've been playing with radio since I was 7. My father was a soldier. He died when I was little. Now I live on the street." The weight of those words crushed him. A child, dirty and poor, had just saved his life. "I need you to come with me." "Why?" "Because I believe you," Ibrahim said, removing his cap. The boy's eyes widened. "I am, but don't say it. You're the president." "Shh, not here." "I'm sorry. You did nothing wrong." Ibrahim placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You may have just saved your country." The guard stepped in, tense. "Sir, we must leave. If that recording is real," "It is, and he comes with us." As they disappeared into a side alley, the market buzzed on, but somewhere in the crowd, a man dialed a number and whispered, "It's him. He knows." The black SUV slid through Ouagadougou's side streets like a shadow. No sirens, no flags, no indication that the president of Burkina Faso sat in the back seat beside a barefoot boy holding a battered radio. Ismail clutched the recorder as if it were made of gold. He hadn't spoken since they left the market. His eyes flicked nervously from the leather seats to the armed guards. "Is this real?" he whispered. Ibrahim nodded. "Very real, son." "You're sitting next to the man they want to kill." Ismail blinked, struggling to process. "Are you going to stop them?" "Not yet. If we act too soon, they'll vanish. We have to catch them tonight during the meeting." "What meeting?" "The Presidential Council. Only my top ministers and military heads are invited. That's where they plan to strike." One of the guards leaned forward. Sir, they'll know if you change the plan. If you don't show up, they'll suspect something. I'm attending, Ibrahim said, voice firm. But this time we'll be ready. He turned to Ismail. What's your name? Ismail. Well, Ismail, tonight you're part of a mission. You helped uncover a conspiracy that could have destroyed this nation. The boy looked away, overwhelmed. Why do they want to kill you? Ibrahim paused, watching the dusty road roll past. Because I stood up for people like you. I ended corrupt deals. I stopped a few powerful men from turning this country into their bank account. And now, I'm their enemy. Ismail nodded slowly. You're not like the others. No, Ibrahim agreed. But not everyone likes change. The convoy reached the presidential palace. Its gates opened silently, guards snapping to attention. Ibrahim stepped out first, guiding Ismail gently. Come, you're safe now. Inside the palace, everything looked normal. Too normal. Ibrahim's instincts screamed. He led Ismail to a guest room, clean but simple. A soldier handed the boy a warm meal and fresh clothes. The boy looked at the food with wide eyes, then glanced at Ibrahim. Eat, the president said. You've earned it. Commander Sekou entered moments later, tall, lean, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Ibrahim handed him the recorder. Sekou listened in silence. His expression didn't change until the final words. Then he looked at the president and said 2 words. It's real. Do you recognize the voices? Sekou nodded. Defense Minister, possibly the Chief of Internal Security. There's a third voice I don't recognize. Ibrahim's stomach churned. These were men he had dined with, men who had pledged loyalty. Watch them, but don't alert them. They must think tonight is still theirs. Sekou nodded again. And the boy? Ibrahim turned to where Ismail stood awkwardly, wiping crumbs from his mouth. He stays here. Give him a bed. Guard him with your life. Yes, sir. As dusk descended, the president dressed for the council meeting. Under his tailored suit, he wore a concealed bulletproof vest. A tiny earpiece buzzed quietly in his ear, connected to Sekou's command post. Silent weapons were distributed to his trusted guards. The palace lights gleamed as ministers began to arrive. They came with smiles and smooth words. They shook hands, joked, and sipped tea, unaware that the man they planned to kill already knew. At precisely 11 p.m., Ibrahim entered the council chamber. The room rose to salute him. He nodded, but his eyes scanned like a hawk. The Minister of Defense sat at the far end, calm, sipping tea. The same man who had whispered, "He must be gone before morning." Then, through his earpiece, Sekou's voice whispered urgently, "Sir, we have a problem. Someone is transmitting audio from inside the room." Ibrahim's heart jumped. What kind of transmission? A live broadcast? There's a spy in that room. Ibrahim's fingers tensed around his pen. The room was polished, dignified. 13 ministers in tailored suits, porcelain teacups steaming softly. Yet somewhere, one of them was streaming their voices in real time to someone on the outside. And that someone wanted him dead. He barely moved his lips. "Can you trace it?" Sekou's voice, calm but sharp, responded in his ear. "It's coming from your left, narrowing it down." 3 men sat on that side, the Minister of Agriculture, the Minister of Defense, and the Deputy Minister of Security. Each had smiled as he entered. Each now appeared engaged in the conversation, discussing infrastructure budgets and military deployments. Then a slight accident, so ordinary it might have passed unnoticed. The Minister of Defense knocked over his tea. As he leaned forward to clean the spill, the edge of his jacket lifted, revealing a faint blinking red light inside. Ibrahim didn't hesitate. His fingers pressed a button on the pen in his pocket, a silent signal. Far outside, in the palace's underground command center, Sekou saw the light flash on his monitor. "Go," he said. Instantly, all lights in the palace went out. Boom, darkness swallowed the room. Confused shouts erupted, chairs scraped, someone cried out. Then came the hiss of smoke canisters. Armed guards in night vision goggles burst in through hidden doors. Shouts turned to screams. Ibrahim remained seated, calm amidst the chaos. In less than 30 seconds, the lights returned. 4 ministers were face down on the carpet, hands behind their heads. One man was still struggling, pinned beneath 2 guards, a transmitter pulled from his inside pocket. The Minister of Defense. "President, what is this?" the deputy minister barked, feigning outrage. Ibrahim stood, his voice low and cold. "I gave you my trust. You chose betrayal." The captured minister writhed. "They threatened my family. Please, I didn't mean—" "You had a choice," Ibrahim interrupted, "and you chose power over honor." The traitor was dragged from the room. The other ministers remained frozen, but the danger wasn't over. A guard ran into the room, breathless. "Sir!" One of the guards escaped through the rear passage. Panic spiked again. Ibrahim's heart skipped. "Search the grounds. Lock down the palace." He turned sharply to Sekou. "The boy. Where's the boy?" Sekou's eyes narrowed. Still in the guest wing, protected. But dread already crept into Ibrahim's bones. With 4 armed men, he sprinted down the marble corridor. His boots echoed like gunshots. The guest wing was dim and silent. Then he saw it. The door to Ismail's room hung open. The bed was empty. A single spot of blood stained the floor near the window. His vision blurred with fury. "Search the palace. Every corner. Find him." Guards scattered. Sekou arrived moments later, his expression grim. "Sir, this was no accident. This was planned." "They took him," Ibrahim said. "He's the only link to the recording. He's the only one who could ruin them." He stared out the window. The night air stung. Beyond the garden, a tree leaned toward the wall. A perfect escape route. "Tree by the kitchen. That wall's low." They climbed it. Sekou nodded. "I'll check the radio towers, see if they transmitted anything after the abduction." "No," Ibrahim said. "Cameras were likely disabled. We're already too late." Then a junior guard ran up, pale and sweating. "Sir, I saw someone before the blackout. Heavy-set man, servant uniform, scar on his left cheek, limp in his walk." Ibrahim froze. "That's no servant. That's Captain Caleb. The one dismissed for spying. The same. If he's involved, this goes deeper than I feared." He turned to his guards. "Lock down the entire palace, and double security on my wife and children." But as soldiers swept the grounds and radios buzzed with orders, Ibrahim stood still, staring into the dark, heart pounding with one thought: Ismail is gone. The van bounced along a rough dirt road outside the city, its headlights slicing through the darkness. Inside, Ismail sat tied to a chair, wrists raw from the ropes, his mouth sealed with duct tape. His face was bruised, his eyes wide with fear but burning with defiance. Across from him sat Captain Caleb, his sharp scar glinting under the dim light of the dashboard. A cigarette dangled from his lips. "Well, well," Caleb muttered. "The boy who rattled the palace?" Ismail squirmed, muffled sounds pressing against the tape. "You should have kept your mouth shut," Caleb said. "You and that stupid radio. You have no idea what you've stirred up." The driver chuckled darkly. "He's just a street rat. Let's dump him." "No," Caleb replied. "The boss wants to hear the recording first. If it's dangerous, we hand him over to the foreigners. Let them make the boy disappear." The van turned sharply, slowing as they approached an old warehouse. Metal doors creaked open, rats scattered into shadows. Caleb and the driver dragged Ismail inside. "You'll talk," Caleb whispered, kneeling close, "or you'll bleed." He ripped the tape from the boy's mouth. Ismail winced, but didn't scream. "Where's the recording?" "I hid it," Ismail said through cracked lips. Caleb grabbed the recorder and hit play. Nothing, just static. His eyes narrowed. "Where is it?" "You'll never find it," Ismail said. Caleb struck him hard across the face. Blood dripped from the boy's chin, but he didn't cry. Then Caleb's phone rang. He answered curtly, listened, and cursed. "Change of plans," he muttered. "They're closing in. We take the boy to the airstrip. Jet leaves in 30 minutes. They shoved Ismail back into the van. His ribs ached, his face throbbed. But somewhere deep inside, he smiled. Because he had lied. He hadn't hidden the recording in the palace or even on himself. He had hidden it inside the old market speaker, the same one he used to shout his warning that morning. And someone had just found it. Back at the palace, a young janitor named Thomas was cleaning near the dusty speaker box on the corner where Ismail had stood. The back panel looked odd, taped shut with fraying wire. Curious, Thomas peeled it open. Inside, a tiny memory card glinted in the dark. A nearby palace security guard noticed. "What's that?" he asked. "I think this belongs to the president." Moments later, Commander Sekou stormed into the intelligence room, the card clutched in his hand. "Sir," he shouted, "we found it!" Ibrahim turned from the balcony, eyes wide. "Where?" "Inside the speaker. The boy hid it." They plugged it in. The room fell silent as the voices played, clear and undeniable. "He must be gone before morning, and the guards are ours." Proof, not suspicion, not rumor. Proof that enemies, foreign and domestic, were working together. Proof that a child, barefoot and hungry, had uncovered a betrayal no spy had seen. Outside the city, the black jet waited on the runway. The van roared onto the tarmac. Caleb dragged Ismail toward the plane. "You should have stayed in the gutter," he snarled. But then thump, thump, thump. A black helicopter descended from the sky like a falling god. Soldiers in black uniforms poured out, rifles raised. "Drop your weapon!" a voice boomed. Caleb spun, grabbing Ismail as a shield. "Back off or the boy dies." Then, crack. A sniper round struck Caleb's leg. He screamed, dropped the gun, and fell. Ismail tumbled forward, gasping. Out of the second helicopter stepped President Ibrahim Traoré himself. "You stole a child from my house," he said. Caleb groaned. "It's not over." But Ibrahim shook his head. "It ends now." That night, the nation held its breath. On every television screen, from village huts to city rooftops, the people of Burkina Faso watched their president stand tall in the presidential hall. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Ismail. He wore a crisp white shirt, his bruises covered with fresh bandages and his face washed clean. But the most powerful thing he wore was his expression, calm, proud, and unshaken. Ibrahim took the podium, his voice firm and unwavering. "My fellow Burkinabe," he said, "tonight we came closer to losing our republic than ever before. I stood in a room filled with men I trusted, men who planned my death. But I am alive, because of him." He turned slightly, resting a hand on Ismail's shoulder. "This boy, this child of the street, used nothing but an old radio and a brave heart to stop a coup. He is proof that the voice of the people matters, no matter how young, no matter how poor." The room erupted in applause. Ministers and soldiers stood. Some wiped their eyes. Ismail stood still, unsure what to do. Then Ibrahim bent down and whispered, "They're clapping for you." Weeks passed and justice rolled through the corridors of power like thunder. Arrests were made, courtrooms filled, testimonies revealed foreign interference, corrupt contracts, and betrayals at the highest level. But something else stirred too: hope. Ibrahim formed a new civilian intelligence network called the People's Guard. It welcomed students, farmers, mothers, and market vendors, anyone who wanted to protect their homeland through vigilance and truth. At the center of its training program stood Ismail, not as a soldier, not as a politician, but as a symbol. He received a home, a school, a future, and something more powerful than any medal: respect. The same street that once ignored his cries now whispered his name like a legend. Mothers pointed him out to their sons. Children played with toy radios, pretending to find the truth like Ismail. One Sunday morning, President Ibrahim returned to the old market corner. He brought no guards, just himself. There, waiting beside the metal speaker, was the boy, now cleaner, taller, but still holding the same broken radio. "Still works?" Ibrahim asked. Ismail smiled. "Always. You just have to listen closely." They sat together on a wooden crate, sharing roasted peanuts as the dusty breeze stirred the memories between them. Behind them, the crowd buzzed with life. But the silence between a president and a street boy, between a nation and its conscience, was the loudest sound of all. And Burkina Faso stood a little taller that day. Because one boy, with nothing but courage, saved everything. Thank you for reading this story. If it moved you, if it made you think, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stories like this deserve to be heard. And now, click the next video on your screen to discover another untold truth that could change the way you see the world.